So many people spend so much time and energy worrying about whether something is deserved or not. Like, oh, this bad thing, well, he deserved that. Or no, he didn't deserve that. He deserves better, whatever. It's like, doesn't fucking matter. All that matters is what actions you choose in reaction to that event. Like, so the worst fucking thing can happen in the world. The first question you should be asking yourself is, okay, what's the best action I can take based on this situation? If the best thing happens in the world, your first question should be, what's the best action I should take based on this event? It should never change.
What I loved in this book, as well as The Subtle Art, I think you brought it up in both, was that people conflate responsibility and fault all of the time, which kind of reminded me of what you just said.
Yeah.
When I 100% agree, everything that happens to you in life and every choice that you make is 100% your responsibility.
Yes.
And of course, there will be certain things that occur in your life that are not your fault.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, if you get hit by a car and you're lying in a hospital bed and you're like, well, it wasn't my fault, it's still your responsibility to go through physical therapy, to get better, to, I don't know, reach out to people that can help you maybe if you're struggling mentally.
And what's crazy too is that, I mean, so if something bad happens to you and it involves another person, a lot of people, it's very easy to blame that other person. But if you end up in a situation like, I don't know, like let's say an earthquake hits California, like in the middle of this interview, and kills one of my best friends, that's obviously nobody's fault. Like, that's just fucking life, right? And it's, but still, even people will spend so much time and energy laying awake in bed trying to figure out, well, did he deserve that? You know, was he a bad person? Was he at fault for that? Was it God? Was it the universe? Was it like all these things? Like, we spend so much time spinning up all these stories and so little time asking ourselves, what's the best thing we can do in this situation? It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It doesn't matter why it happened. 99% of those stories that you invent for yourself are going to be false. They're going to be made up. They're going to be inaccurate. So what can you do that's going to be beneficial?
And on top of just being productive, it's also ethical, because you can get caught in these echo chambers of either entitlement, if you think that you earn something, or it could be victimhood, if you think like you're just lamenting over something that happened to you or happened to somebody that you care about.
Yeah, and it's what happens is a lot of these narratives then prevent us from taking certain actions, right? So it's if I convince myself that certain people are to blame for this horrible problem in my life, that's going to alter my ability to take action in my life or take action in a situation that might involve them.
Why do you think people overthink everything?
So we have this natural proclivity to spin up these stories around events in our lives, and there's a practical evolutionary purpose to this, right? Like researchers have found that this kind of innate sense of tit for tat justice is very much inherent in human psychology, right? So it's like, if you punch me on the arm, it only feels correct that I punch you on the arm. You know, if somebody steals $100 from you, it only feels correct that you get the $100 back. Like, it's like this equal and opposite sense of morality that happens. I think for most of human history, this was necessary to kind of regulate human tribes, right? Make sure if you steal from him, then he gets something back from you, etc. So it makes sense that our mind is we're always trying, any event that happens, we're trying to create narratives around two things. One is this a good or bad thing? How good is it? How bad is it? Is it the worst thing? Is it the best thing? And then the second narrative that we spin up around it is, does the person deserve this? Are they a good or bad person? Did they do a good or bad thing to deserve the good or bad thing that happened to them? It's just a very primitive, natural state of response to any sort of event. And I think, first of all, those stories tend to be extremely flawed. They tend to be extremely biased. They don't acknowledge our own imperfect information. And I think especially in the day and age of the internet, we are all learning the hard way how little we know at any given time about any subject whatsoever. And I've just found that so many people that I talk to or that I've worked with in the past have spent decades of their lives hung up on these stories of, like, you know, they grew up in a fucked up household when they were a kid. So they generated these stories about how they're a bad person and their parents punished them because of this. And then you fast forward 20 years and they're in a relationship and they've had a kid of their own, and it's completely fucking up their family life because they've held on to that story for that long. And so they're like, we do this in macro ways and we do it in micro ways. And I think if you look at a lot of the traditional wisdom, whether it's the Stoics, Buddhists, even Christianity, like it's so much of it is trying to get people to let go of these stories, right? It's like Buddhism tells you everything is impermanent. Uncertainty is the only certainty. Let go of everything. The Stoics say, you know, like it's don't get attached to emotions, don't get attached to narratives, withhold judgment. Christianity says radical forgiveness, love, you know, if a person smites you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. It's like, as humans, as society is scaled to such a level and complexity, we need these constant reminders of don't buy into that story. That first story that pops into your mind after any event, it's probably wrong, it's probably self-serving, it's probably extremely judgmental, and it's probably not going to serve you or anybody else.
See, I tend to take the approach, if anything happens, whether it be good or bad, I tend to think, how will this serve me in the future? What can I learn from this? And how can I benefit from this? So if a negative experience happens, I just think, first of all, everything happens for a reason is one of the things that I tend to believe, and that maybe there's a bigger purpose behind it long term that maybe you're not aware of now.
Sure.
But I try to reframe everything as just, how can I benefit from this? Where will this serve me in the future? What can I learn from it? And then for a lot of things too, it's just like you have a lot more control than you think.
Absolutely. And I think so that classic cliche, that's a cliche for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. Again, that's a good example of something that kind of gets imbued with this cosmic significance of like, oh, the universe has a plan for you, or God has a plan for you. I don't necessarily believe that, but I do think everything happens for a reason, but you have to go make that reason. You have to decide, okay, my wife left me. This is absolutely fucking horrible, but it happened for a reason, and I need to go find that reason. I need to go find a way to make this a good thing in my life.